So it is 5:30 on March 25th. This is the regular meeting of the SVUESD, rescheduled from earlier in the month to accommodate town meeting day and other things. So our first agenda item is the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you so choose, I'm going to stand, recite with us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks. So agenda item 2 is a reorganization of the board. We dealt with some of this already when we had our carousel meeting earlier. There are 2 things that we definitely need to do with regard to executing warrants and what we do on months that we don't meet, so as not to hold up the essential functioning of the central office here. There's a procedure for executing contracts where we need permission from the board to authorize Sandy and or me to be able to execute those.
Yeah, you have to first, I think I first have to be appointed as a vice chair before you.
Were you not elected chair? We just did SU reps.
Chris, for your vote.
Well, everybody. Thank you. I sure would. Yeah, I got ahead of myself. I remember what we did was SU with the chair and SU reps. That's what we needed to do for the superintendent stuff. But we have all of our other board officers to do.
That's true.
So the first one is we need to do vice chair, clerk, and committees. We need to appoint various committees. So we'll start with the vice chair. Are there any nominations for a vice chair for this? Like to Sandy Foster? Great.
I second.
Great.
I third Sandy Foster.
Thank you. Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of electing Sandy as vice chair, please signify by saying aye.
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 Abstentions, okay. Congratulations, Sandy.
Sorry.
You didn't mean to. I should give a spoiler alert for that. We next move on to clerk, and since Jeff's not here, I say we just elect Jeff.
I think so. I nominate Jeff.
I'll second.
I
Okay,
nominate
great.
Jeff too.
Great, thanks.
I'll third it.
I am certain he would accept this and he'd be hurt if we didn't. So let's go ahead and all those in favor of electing Jeff as clerk of this board, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any abstentions? He's elected. Great. I had asked last month for folks to let me know if they were interested in serving on any committees. The only one I heard from was Sandy, who said she'd be interested in continuing to serve on the policy committee. So we'll make that appointment now.
I'd also like to continue to serve on that.
Right on, Glenn. Thank you very much. So that's the.
I'll see the food.
Okay, great. Christelle, were there any committees you would hope to sit on?
I would like to look at the committees again. I need to
Fair enough.
refresh my memory.
And that's fine. And we're going to go ahead and make Jeff to serve on the building usage ad hoc committee. Ricardo had been sitting on that. Ricardo's term is over, so Jeff has agreed to sit on that committee as well. So that should cover most of our appointments, and we'll wrap those up next week. In terms of the authorization for the chair and vice chair to execute warrants, here's the motion. I'll read it out loud if anyone wants to make the motion. Great. So the motion should read to authorize the superintendent and his or her designee to execute on behalf of the school district purchase orders, agreements for consulting services, grant assessments, and other contracts arising affecting the routine operation of the Southwest Vermont Union Elementary School District. The superintendent or designee shall not execute any contracts resulting from shall not execute any contracts resulting from a public bid process, any employment agreements, and any long-term contracts without express authority from the board. Would anyone like to make that motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Cindy. Do you have a second on that?
I'll second.
Thanks, Glenn. So first and a second, any discussion or questions about what that means? Okay, great.
Happy to offer context if anybody's wondering.
I think we're all set. It basically, yeah, it allows, yes, it outlines what we need to be doing, our standard operating
Been around a long time.
procedures. Yep. You said it, I didn't. So with that said, we have a first and a second. We've exhausted all the conversation. I mean that with the utmost respect. You bring a wealth of experience to this board, and we're grateful to him. With all discussion, loosey-goosey tonight. Sorry, folks. We've exhausted the conversation. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. So we move past that. That brings us to, well, we still need the approval to authorize off-cycle warrants. So I would entertain a motion to authorize the chair and vice chair of this board to execute those warrants during months that we don't meet.
So moved.
Thanks.
Second.
Great. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Great, that also passes. So that brings us on to public comments. We do have two members of the public here, and we have some folks perhaps online, so the floor is open.
Hey, Miss Kenny and I are here from Shasbury Elementary School. We would like to see if the Pledge of Allegiance policy could be amended, just a word or two. Right now, it states the pledge can be said, but not during, but it says before instruction time, which means before school. So right now, we have been told by our principal that we need to say the pledge before school starts. So we have been told we have to say between 8 and 8:30, and our school doesn't start till 8:30 when all our kids are there. So as of right now, the way it states, we cannot say the Pledge of Allegiance with our class and give everybody opportunity to do that if they so choose to. So we would like to see if a couple words could be changed instead of before instruction time, if it could be changed to not during instruction time. Then that way all students at Shasbury will be able to say the pledge with the class if they choose to, because right now we cannot. So it's not really that much different than it was in the fall.
I thought we corrected that issue.
We did send an email about it, but I didn't get the impression that it was being corrected, so that's why we came here to
I mean, this
ask if it could be amended.
So what I'm reluctant to do is to open up the conversation, but given how much attention and how many people had strong feelings about the pledge last time, I'm reluctant to bring it up without properly warning it. That if we're going to have a conversation about it, we ought to make everyone aware that we're going to have the conversation about it so that we can.
Yeah, but we voted.
We
This
did it.
board
and
voted, which
on-
means
On the
what, nothing?
practice, no, the practice that this board voted to adopt is exactly what was just repeated to us.
No, that's not what I read.
So what it says is, can I say, it says
Sure,
before instruction time in the policy, because we had to wait till the board minutes were voted on and we could see them in public. So it takes like 2 months almost to do that. And then February meeting was, they didn't have a February meeting, so it comes to March meeting now. We would just like it changed to, instead of before instruction time, to not during instruction time.
Outside instruction. So Kelsey Kenyon, second grade, teacher at Shasbury Elementary. So when I'm just looking up an email that I had, what I had sent prior, so it says at the meeting the December meeting, it stated that and this is quoted, the board wanted to make sure that policy was clear enough in explaining that the pledge is to be done, quote, after the expected start of the school day, but during a morning meeting sort of time. So teachers are, quote, not still directed to do it before the start of school time, if that's what we're trying to stay away from, to which Sandy replied, that's exactly what we are trying to stay away from. So the language in the policy right now does not really support what the board said that they wanted, I guess.
And we have been instructed to do it before
Before 8:30.
instruction time.
Yes.
So that's why we would like to maybe fix a couple words if we could.
So I'm, let's be happy, I'm willing to put on a future agenda, revisiting the pledge practice. And I'll just say, I'm not directing this to anyone because I'm not supposed to. Simply, it's not a policy, it's a practice, because there's a
Okay.
policy, it may seem like a distinction without a difference, but there is. So we can put it back on the agenda at a future point to properly warn it so that anyone who wants to hear the conversation can hear the conversation and we can revisit it. I will say, for anyone who's listening and cares to, waiting for the minutes is one way to review the content of the meeting, but also Cat TV has these things up within 24, maybe 48 hours. And I would always encourage folks, if they have questions about what was actually covered and voted on in a school board meeting, check out the Cat TV footage because it's available far sooner than the minutes are officially approved. I will say that the practice that was quoted to us during public comment tonight is what was made in a motion, seconded, and voted by the entire board. It
See,
was. It's
I don't remember all those words. I thought
It's
cut and dry.
it's
And he is,
you can check the minutes, you can check the Cat TV, but it's exactly what the policy was. So again, because we should not be discussing this because it's a hot button topic, people feel passionately and we ought to warn it. I'd like to stop conversation on the pledge right now. We can revisit it in April.
Not that I want to say anything other than, can we make sure it's on April's
Sure.
agenda?
Yep.
Thank you.
And if for some reason April's agenda comes out and it's not on there, you should let me know right away. But we'll do that. Anything else from public comments?
I just want to say I'm here as a union rep also coming to all the meetings, just so everybody knows that we want to be more visible.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Solidarity for.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, you're welcome.
That moves us to operations. So to this, Director Anderson, the floor will be all yours.
Thank you.
I have two items on the agenda today. And one of them is the bidding for Molly Stark Elementary. We have money in the budget to replace the sheet carpeting in the classrooms. And we bid it out, we put it in the Bennington Banner. We also invited different contractors to provide a quote. We did that, and how we did that was by classroom. So when we got all the quotes, we could look at classroom A and see who was cheaper. So we went through that exercise. And basically there's two contractors that can provide the lower quotes per room. That's all stated in the recommendation. And so I wanted to answer any questions about that, and also let you know we're moving from carpet that needs to be cleaned repeatedly, and we're moving away from that and from VCT. The issue becomes, especially with VCT, is that it gets installed and then during the summers they have to strip it and wax it, and which just brings extra chemicals into the buildings, extra man hours to do the work, and it's additional scope of work. So in many of the other schools, we've gone to a luxury vinyl tile, which is hypoallergenic, easy to clean. We don't need to strip it. We don't need to wax it. And it's also heat moldable, so that if something drops on it and a piece gets damaged, we can pull a piece out, put a new piece in, and it's like brand new. So that's the product we're using with the intent on adding fewer chemicals to the buildings and keeping the floors clean. So it's in your board packet, the recommendation for both Avatello and WCW to move forward with that work at Molly Stark. And it is a budgeted amount of work or money, and we could do it before July 1.
Any questions? Yeah, Clay.
Yeah.
First is, are you planning to have a single color?
So nope, we actually went through a process of working with the faculty in their classes so that they could choose from a palette. It is an elementary school, so we wanted to keep them bright and cheery. We didn't want to go with like the grays because that's a little sad. But they could choose from that palette.
Would we not find it more cost effective to be unicolored, for lack of a better word?
Per square foot, it doesn't cost, the material doesn't matter, and the installation, it's relatively quick. I did luxury vinyl tile in my kitchen. It took a day. It wasn't a big deal. I mean, to trim out the sides takes a while, but thank you for asking.
So you had a bid submission, and then you had a project estimated cost summary. So the numbers are different, and then there's another number that is 99,000. Then you have color coded pieces in the map. So I'm just a little bit, need some clarification. The bid submission was for the entire school?
Correct. So the bid submission was for the entire scope. So each contractor said, here, we'll do the whole school. And then we went through each bid and pulled out each room individually so we could get the most cost-effective price per room.
So the estimated cost summary compared to the bid submission, what do those two numbers represent?
I had to look,
So-
but
The bid summaries are each of those contractors providing you their whole price for the whole scope. But the project estimated cost is basically stripping out the lower bid for each area that's gonna be done. So basically divvying out their overall bids and breaking it into two to take the best price to complete the work to be done.
You see the look of confusion still on my face? So, let me show you what I'm looking
Yeah.
at so that you are looking.
I
at
am
the
looking,
thing.
yeah. So Abigail said, hey, we'll do the whole school for that much.
And then?
WCW. What Director Anderson and Renee, Director Renee,
Yeah.
what Director Holly and Director Renee did was they went through all Abatiello stuff
Yes.
and pulled out the cheapest bits and went through all WCW's stuff and pulled out the cheapest bits and realized they could get the whole school done for 99 and change, which is the combination of
The lowest of.
the lowest two. So rather than to say yes or
Got it,
yes, they
got
went
it.
through and did the extra
And-
work, the
and
extra
so
due diligence.
Then you can see how it looks like just these areas are being done and not the entire school.
So, right.
Is that correct?
Yes,
Correct. So not,
Whole
so
school?
the, no, the
No.
whole.
the
school.
whole project. Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Now I understand.
And it's Director Gordon, for anyone who's following.
So I would request the board make a motion to move forward with this work so I can order.
One more question.
Sure, of course.
And this has to be done by June before they get out of school.
I'm sorry, July 1st. So when they're done, so the longest lead time, the biggest wait time is getting the material. Going through and ripping it out is really relative, ripping out the carpet and putting it in a quick conversation or a quick exercise. But it takes 6 to 8 weeks to get the material, so that's why I'd like to.
Well, I'm
Those.
not concerned about that piece of it because that will not disrupt learning in any way possible.
Yeah.
I just concerned on the installation. So I'm guessing it's no more than a week.
Yeah, so we did the second floor of Bennington Elementary in less than 2 days.
And so
The same material.
about the same.
About the same smaller square footage, but if we have 2 weeks at the end of June, I think we'll be okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Great. So I would entertain a motion then for the SVUESD Board of Directors to award contract to Abatiello and WCW and authorize expenditures from the general fund of up to $99,215.12 to cover the scope of the work and associated costs as outlined in this project estimated cost summary.
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Christelle. Do we have a second? Also,
Go ahead.
all in line. Great. So we have first and a second. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Great.
Thank you.
All right. So number 2, Director Anderson.
So the second thing is the Shaftesbury, and I'm glad you're here to represent Shaftesbury. We would like to paint the outside and Principal Johnson suggested some blues, and so this is just to show you and the people watching. I don't like looking at myself on TV. So, but these are color studies of what it looks like presently. You can't see it through here, but it's in pretty dire need of a job. And then different color blue selections that would blend in with the surrounding area. So I'm happy to, this is informational only, so you have some time to look at them and ask any questions or provide any feedback you want, but Superintendent Culkeen wanted to make sure that you guys knew that we were painting it and that we had narrowed it down to these colors.
Did staff or families have any input on the color choices?
Only administration. So Sarah Peace and Principal Johnson. But we can certainly take these to the front.
I have a feeling they picked blue, because blue is like our colors for school, or the Shaftesbury Eagles are blue and.
Yep.
Like a yellow, blue, so that might have been why they picked blue, I don't know.
Yeah.
Director Anderson, are you looking for action from the board to approve this, or this is simply an FYI?
Simply an FYI.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
And then the third of 3 for you is the issue of the Bennington Elementary School security.
Yes, and that's, I'll turn it over to Adam.
Great.
Thank you, friends.
Screen. So to back it up a bit,
This,
the
Yes, this was posted today.
so if anyone would like a hard copy, because they didn't have a chance. Yeah.
those out. So to back it up a bit, the IT systems throughout the district, so IT is gonna be your Wi-Fi, internet, building security systems, the public address, that's the PA bells, that's what the principal uses to call someone down to the principal's office. Those systems were well past their useful life. Starting in 2021, 2022, we started aggressively replacing these systems. starting with the core infrastructure, so that's the component of the network that all of this plugs into. And now the second step that we're in is actually replacing and upgrading the actual tools that the principals are using, or administrators or teachers, and making sure that everything stays within its useful life. I think the first question the board usually asks is, are we gonna run into a situation like this again? The operating budget does account for maintaining these systems within their useful life. So that's kind of where we're at now. So this RFP was done, I don't want to say rushed, but it was done quickly, because the security system in Bennington Elementary, just as it is across a lot of the buildings, is in a it's past its useful life. So there's components of it that as they fail, we can't replace or upgrade, unless you want to do some eBay shopping. But ultimately that's putting a Band-Aid and kicking the can down the road. So overall, there is a plan in place to be replacing the elementary school systems, along with the high school and middle school. So you'll probably be seeing a lot of me in the next year or so as we chunk away at them. But the one that we're looking at tonight is the Bennington Elementary. So they're on an old coax system, analog, really old technology from the early 2000s. Most of the security world has moved over to digital or IP-based systems. So we're well past where the camera system should be. So the principal reached out with some concerns. I would have provided you guys a copy of the full RFP, but it has floor plans, pictures. So if there's a mechanism for me to give it to you without it becoming a public document, more than happy to do it. But that was just my concern, not including it in the packet. So in February of 2025, we put together an RFP for the Bennington Elementary. All the details were put together with the security team signing off based on how they use the system, along with building principal and assistant principals. They did a walkthrough with us because this was an opportunity to just look at overall, how does the security system, so I should define that. Security is door access. So that's the card swipes that let you into the building. The cameras, so indoor, outdoor cameras. The intercom system, so we call that like the doorbell. That's when they press the button and they can speak to somebody. Yep, those are the three categories. So the RFP was advertised publicly in the Bennington Banner. With the security systems, we've been trying to position the RFPs in a way that we can start leveraging some national companies, some of the larger companies, because they give us significantly better pricing when it comes to simply selling hardware and software. But then it also allows us to start leveraging local installers, so local electricians, to actually help with the cabling component of it. Where before, I think one of the reasons these systems never got replaced is when we tried to keep it all as one, like the bidder had to apply and provide the complete solution. The cost was just astronomical, and the district would have a hard time funding it. So we sent it out to some of the national companies that we've worked with: CDW, Gov Connection, SHI, Stark Technologies is somebody out of Albany. And then Halfway Electric was a local electrician that recently did a project at the high school for us. We attached copies of all of the quotes and proposals that were provided. And I broke it out into 3 categories. So door access, camera hardware, software and install, and then the cabling and electrical work. So for door access, there's 2 options that I put together because we kind of pieced it together to make sure that the district got the best price. So option 1 is going with SHI, who cannot provide the on-site services. They can only provide the selling of the hardware and software. And then before the RFP went out, I had a member of our team provide finance a quote for us to just do the services side of it. If a vendor like SHI or Connection or CDW won on the hardware price, So then the district could move forward. That's the model that we used at the high school and it seemed to work really well. So that's option one. Option two is utilizing Stark Technologies, who's offering to provide the hardware and configuration of it. And then leveraging Monument Electric to do the install. So the configuration side is the software side. The install portion is actually showing up to the site and twisting the screwdrivers and putting the equipment on the wall. So that's for the door access control. At the bottom, I have my recommendation. The manufacturer with the option one is Ricotta. The manufacturer with option two is Schneider Electric. Both are enterprise grade. The district's not gonna be in a bad spot with either option. Any questions?
So if I understand you correctly, for the cabling and the electrical work, you reached out through the Bennington banner and solicited for work or for this RFP, is that correct?
Yep, so we put together a RFP summary document that didn't include the confidential information.
Sure.
And then we sent that out to the list of vendors at the top. We also put it in the Bennington banner and we used some website that's geared towards sharing this bid nationally is how they advertise it. And that's how we sent the bid out.
So I'm just curious if there is a vendor in Albany or if there's a vendor in Springfield and how would they be aware that this, I mean, this is a significant amount of money.
Yep.
So if I'm thinking of the policy, the true policy, it has specifics on how we receive the bids and since I didn't have a chance to look at this before right now, I don't have a chance to cross-reference it to ensure that the bidding was done as the policy is stated. So I'm wondering, how did we share this? Did it go into the paper, the Albany paper or Springfield Republican or the Boston Globe, whatever it is, so that we get, instead of us just saying, well, I'm gonna call Glenn, because I know Glenn, does this, like, how is it that we were able to reach the maximum number of people?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So Anne, who's she manages all the tech purchasing for the district. She's been here for a long time. So she's been doing it for a very long time. So she manages that portion of it. And she's the one who managed all the communication around the RFP process. So what she does is she takes the list of all of the bidders who've replied to prior requests and sends them out. And then we try.
So we're not sure whether we actually follow the policy or not.
So
Well,
I think,
statute requires that we invite 3 or more or advertise. So we did-
so, and no, I was pulling it. So, but
Thank you.
what I was trying to pull it up to cite exactly that.
Thank you.
Because it's an either or requirement, but we did both. We didn't do anything. Director Souza already did both. So, and I think unless we have a really good reason not to, I think we should always be erring on side of trust and just understanding these are professionals that we employ and.
I just love a good policy.
Sure. And we've never met face to face, so sorry for not knowing who.
No,
It's okay.
it's
Nice to meet you.
Sandy, just so you know, Adam and I work closely on pricing and bidding.
I've never met him. He's a brand new face to me, so,
It's nice to meet you guys.
Yeah. So I don't know if I'm looking at a vendor. I have no
Oh, yeah.
idea.
So I can't speak to the IT side of things, but on the electrical side of things, the per hour quote and the labor costs and materials are definitely within an industry standard.
And when we did this RFP, the pricing that we got, even an apples to apples comparison from the same vendor, is about 5 to 10% less than what we've paid on prior projects. So we have seen actually a reduction by doing this RFP process versus just blindly reaching out to let's say SHI and saying, hey, give us a quote for this, we want to move forward. By going through this process, it has paid off and the district is receiving a better price. On the hardware software side. So the second section is the camera hardware software. So again, Stark Technologies was offering a full at 134, SHI and blended using some of our services, it comes out to 100. So there's a $34,000 delta there. The manufacturer with SHI is Verkada. Verkada is what is installed here, and what has been installed in some of the schools as their systems fail. Avigilon is what Stark quoted. Avigilon is a fantastic product. It's an enterprise grade product. So the district, again, with either option, those are both business class. You're comparing HP versus Dell at this point. And then this third section is the cabling and electrical related work. Option one is Halfway Electric, local electrician. They came in at 23.8. They are able, so we did have a time constraint in the RFP or request. We asked to have it completed by over April vacation. So there's no disruption to teaching and learning. And so if you get the system replaced in a timely manner, and not just let it keep operating in the state it's in now. Option two was Monument Electric. Again, another local vendor. They were not able to meet the April break timeline. They requested to move it to summer. And then I did confirm with them. So they had on their quote, they said that it was contingent. It was based on Stark Technologies doing the work. He did confirm that that's not the case. So he's open to do the work, no matter how the district moves forward on the hardware. And then I listed 2 positive projects that we've had with both vendors with similar work. So I think on the electrical side, Monument or Halfway won slightly on price and is able to do the April break. But yeah, that's a very close, which is what you would hope to be getting, right? Because that means that we're writing things appropriately and they're properly understanding it. Before I go to my recommendation section, do we have any questions about like the system?
We've just got one about the software licensing. SHI's got a 5-year license. Stark doesn't seem to have anything about it, but they have a higher price point. Is that?
Yeah, so Stark added the license as a separate line. So their 5 years of licensing. So on their quote, they quoted 2,200, which puts the district in a weird position because it's, we requested 5-year licensing on the RFP. They only quoted year one pricing. They didn't quote for the full 5 years. So there's nothing in there to stop them from going to $5,000 year 2, $10,000 year 3.
And just to follow up, and the same be said for SHI not doing the same thing in year 6.
Yep. So SHI's, the total cost there includes 5 years of licensing.
So they're welcome to do the same thing in year 6 that Stark potentially could do in year 2.
Correct. Okay. Not typical. My experience with all 3 of those major companies, I mean, they're multi-billion-dollar organizations and they are very competitive. So I don't think that we'd be in a position where we'd be price gouged. But I also don't want to lock the district into a 10-year.
Any other questions for Director Caesar?
The funding from this,
Yes, that's
thank you.
So, couple of options. In by order of preference. The first being basically looking to our current funding that we have and finding breakage. I think working with Holly will be able to piecemeal it together. You can look at your budget stat, there's plenty of money sitting there unspent, uncommitted at this point in time. So I'm very confident we would be able to find breakage and or pushing some things off to next year to be able to get this done next month. Secondly, you could potentially look at money that we have in this budget that would be allocated to go into your capital reserve fund at the end of the year. So every year we budget $130,000. Won't quite get us there, but we could take that money instead of putting that into that capital reserve at the end of this year, we could use that money. But just as a reminder, we took that money out of next year's budget, so we actually won't be setting that money aside in FY 26. And then thirdly, you do have capital reserve funds that are sitting there. And going back to our budget documents, the remaining amount of money that was basically created through the Bennington School District. So that has $53,262 left. Powell, Shaftesbury, Woodford, we wouldn't touch that money because that's allocated for those school buildings. But the SVUESD fund currently has $520,000 in it. So that's certainly something you could access.
And is it also a possibility to take some of it out of whatever you have left of this year's budget as well as one of those other options?
We could. I really feel like we'll be able to do it within this year's basically
Yeah.
unspent funds. Because essentially, if we take money out of the SVUESD fund, we have money that we're just gonna be sliding right back into it at the end of the year anyway. And we do have the contingency money as well.
But if you do take it out of this year, it doesn't go into 2 years from now,
It
correct?
will not be part of our fund balance, correct?
That's a different, that's a tough piece there.
We are trying to work our fund balances down, so spending this year's money is a good thing.
We saved a lot of money on oil this year.
Because of the propane.
Propane and just efficiency measures on electrification and new building management systems.
So, with regard to any other questions before we move on, taking some actions?
Or, and honestly, I can come back to the board later in the spring and we can revisit it. Like right now, we know that we have the cash to be able to commit to doing the work. But if you want to wait and decide in May or June how you actually want to roll with it, we can certainly do that too.
And there's no need for us right now to specify to you what line item or what pile of money to take this from.
Not necessarily, I mean, unless everybody felt strongly about it, I mean, we can, again, revisit it, but we just want to make sure we can get the work done
good.
next month if the board's.
One last thing.
Sure.
What condition is the system in now at Bennington Elementary?
Say 50% of it's functioning.
When you say that, do you mean like the doorbells or is it not something that you care to share about?
Yeah, no, I'd say that there's cameras that aren't working, like just don't turn on. So that's been an issue, and I know that there's been incidents where, yeah, there's been incidents where that's been needed. The card swipes all work. I can say that that's functioning. But then there's also, you know, if we're looking at overall security of the card swipes, they're not. Yeah, I can come back and give you a full detail after we make it secure. I'm just nervous about making it like some details of it.
Well, again, one last one, and I promise this time. Playback capability is of paramount importance for a number of reasons that we need not to go into specifics. What percentage of capacity is that system able to produce right now?
So it's 30, the current system is less than 7 days. The new system has a 30-day retention. And the way that we, the products that we're looking at, both Avigilon and Verkada, the companies have moved over to a decentralized approach to the security system. So what that means is, so for example, there's a camera right here. There's no central server that's storing the data. So that camera can fail. And it's just that camera. So what that means is that there's not gonna be a large capital expense that comes, and that's typically where I see, you know, us getting hung up with deploying camera systems is, you know, there's the dream that we're gonna have, say, 25 cameras, But right now we only have the money to afford the server for the 25 cameras, and then we never get to purchasing 25 cameras. So with this type of system, and it helps me when I'm helping the principals understand what the need is. I can say, hey, look, let's just do this level now. And then if you feel that there's still holes and gaps, we can revisit it down the road. And that also helps keeping the costs down. Because if you leave it to somebody that's just drawing up, they're gonna put a camera everywhere. But this system has 30-day retention. The current system's around 7 or just under 7 days of retention. The archiving capabilities with Verkada are indefinite. So as long as there's an active license, all that footage will be retained within their cloud infrastructure indefinitely. We can also export our data, so we're not locked into a data silo. So it's not like once it's in there, we can't take it out. And then there's a lot of functionality within Verkada that I'm excited to continue to bring to the district and allow the principals to leverage to streamline their operations.
Did this come from the principals or did it come from the safety group of people committee or?
It's coming from all angles because the systems are that bad. So I think when I started working with the district in 2021, and I think this was literally like, we need a new camera system. And I was like, well, you don't have a foundation to put a camera system on. So we had to do the foundation first, which was the infrastructure, which is the switches, internet, that type of stuff. And then, now it's been 24 months, and they really need these camera systems replaced. So it's coming from all angles. It's coming from the security team. And then I got a really nice email from I think we might have been CC'd on that too. I know Jim was, but a really nice email from Dr. Arroyo outlining why the system's not working and why he needs a new system.
Very good. So
Thank you.
we have a recommendation from Director Suzor. I will outline it, and then if someone wants to move on that, that would be great. So so I would entertain a motion to award the bids as follows. For the door access control, that we move forward with option 1 as outlined in the amount of $14,176.62. With regard to the camera hardware, software, and installation, that we move forward with option 1 as outlined in the amount of $100,255.61. And with regard to cabling and electrical related work, that we move forward with option 1 as outlined in the amount of $23,800 for a total cost of the entire project of $138,232.23. You want to make that motion?
I will make the motion.
Thanks, Glenn. You have a second on that?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Cindy. A first and a second.
second.
Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, and it carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys too.
Excellent. Okay, so that moves us down to finance. Under finance, we have a treasurer's report that has not been posted yet. We also have a grant that's been awarded to Pownell Elementary School, which we need to officially accept. So I would entertain a motion to accept the Williams College Homestead Grant in the amount of $5,000 as awarded to Pownell.
Motion.
Thanks, Sandy. Do we have a second, please?
Second.
Thanks, Sandy and Cindy. Any discussion on accepting the Olmsted grant for $5,000? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the grant, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? And it carries. I would entertain a motion also to authorize our new elected clerk, Jeff, to write a letter of thanks to the Olmsted Grant Foundation.
I insist on that.
Very good. Do we have a second, please?
A second.
Thanks. A first and a second. Any discussion? No. So great. All those in favor of directing Jeff to write a letter of thanks, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great.
Thank you, Jeff.
We're gonna move into policies. So there are 3 policies to warn, and there was a conversation, an informal conversation about the difference between warning and adopting. So when it comes to policies, these are really the backbones of how this board needs to operate. We need to be following the policies as adopted by the SVU. There's a 2-tiered system of these. The first is warning, which is to say, hey, everybody, the policy committee is proposing these changes. Please take a careful look. We take a look. When they come back for adoption, we come back with the feedback, with the conversation to have whether or not this board wants to adopt those. So given that we have several other things to be touching on tonight, I would entertain a motion to warn draft policy, draft revisions to policy 2600, 4100, and 5175, which are specifically the superintendent of schools evaluation and review, the policy regarding the alcohol and drug-free workplace, and the policy regarding the possession, sale, distribution, and use of illegal substances. So first and foremost, I would entertain a motion to warn those three.
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Cindy. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Sandy. So a first and a second, any discussion on warning those three? Hearing none. All those in favor of warning those three policies, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, so it is warned. Sandy and Glenn, as our representatives to the policy committee, any brief comments either of you would like to make on these three policies that we've just warned?
Yes.
Okay.
The first one, we're working on the superintendent of schools evaluation and review. That is a big change from where it was.
Mhm.
The second one, the alcohol and drug-free workplace, we need additional, guidance from our attorneys.
Okay.
And the third one is the easiest of the three and will be the easiest for all of you to look at. But if you do have any questions or anything that you would like us to consider, please reach out to me or to Glenn and we'll take it back to the committee.
Thanks. Glenn, anything to add? No. Okay, super perfect. So that brings us to the superintendent report. We'll hear from our acting superintendent, Laura Boudreau, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for having me tonight. So last Wednesday, March 19th, Pownell Elementary School had an emergency during the school day. And Principal Lorge has been hard at work since the incident, ensuring that the Pownell school community feels safe, respected, and supported. I'd like to take a moment to honor the students, the staff, and the families of the Pownell school community for their quick response and continued follow-up support. A big thanks to MAU for the additional counseling services provided to staff and students. I would also like to thank our community partners who quickly responded, including the Bennington Sheriff's Department. On Monday, March 17th, there was a water main break on Orchard Road, resulting in Molly Stark Elementary School not having school. The town needed to turn the water off in the area to repair the water main break. I'd like to thank our SVSU Operations Department for monitoring the situation while it was happening and keeping us informed, and the town of Bennington for their super quick response so that we could get more than just the school back open on Orchard Road. The same day that this took place, the Best Education Use Facilities Ad Hoc Committee, which comes out of this board, toward Shaftesbury Elementary School, Molly Stark Elementary School, and Pownell Elementary School. The group was also to fit in a trip to Monument Elementary School. Members were able to tour the buildings to gain a better understanding of all the facilities, and a slideshow is in the process of being prepared with photos to assist the committee with their continued work. And finally, this past Monday, on March 24th, there was a legislative breakfast held in this space right here. The legislative delegation from our region provided an overview of the current work linked to the suggested changes to Vermont's educational system. The legislators in attendance shared that they will continue to collect testimony linked to Governor Phil Scott's education transformational bill, with a focus on developing long-term transformational action items that will in the future be connected to a bill. There are conversations currently being held around a short-term goal for how to minimize property tax rate increases moving forward. There is also a regional group that started to meet last Thursday evening. So Nicole Whalen, who's the chair, the vice chair of the SVSU board, and myself were invited to join superintendents and their district board chair from the southwest corner of Vermont. This particular meeting started with getting to know each other, learning more about each district's shared visions. And the goal is to work together to understand the suggested changes and to work with our legislative delegation. to give them feedback about how we feel about this happening in our region. The group will also allow educational leaders in the region to provide input to these representatives. So again, that we can, as a region, work together to respond to what's happening at the state level. And so that's my update for tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for Acting Superintendent Boudreaux? Okay, dynamite. So that moves us into agenda item 8, which is the SVSU report, and we'll turn to Cindy and Glenn to see who would like to give us the update.
We have been working hard, hiring a superintendent, so we feel very confident and very happy to be at that final stage of acceptance. So we are, now on the edge of, having our new superintendent
Great.
step in.
That's
place.
major work.
That's major,
Yep.
and that's what we've been
Big deal.
focusing on.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. Exciting.
Perhaps perhaps the most important thing that the SVSU, like single item, the most important single item the SVSU could take up. Who is going to be the next superintendent?
It's amazing work.
Yep.
A lot of people had a lot of work that they did to get it, including you, as the first step in moving the final candidates forward. So it's amazing how well the process went.
Yeah.
I felt very strong.
Great. Anything else from the SVSU?
Did I forget anything?
No.
Perfect. Great. Thanks so much. We're going to move the chair report to after our executive session. So that brings us up to our executive session. So I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session, inviting Director Galt and Assistant Superintendent and Acting Superintendent Boudreaux into the executive session with us for two purposes. Pursuant to 1 Vermont statutes annotated section 313A3, which regards the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee, provided that the public body shall make a final decision to hire or appoint a public officer or employee in an open meeting and shall explain the reasons for its final decision during the open meeting. And 1 Vermont statutes annotated subsection 313A10, which regards security or emergency response measures, the disclosures of which could jeopardize public safety. So I'd entertain a motion to enter into executive session as described, please.
So moved.
Thanks. Thanks. First and a second, any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor of moving into executive session as described, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Muted.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And the motion carries. So I will add that we will be taking action afterward, for anyone who's interested in sticking around or staying tuned in. All set. You're all set. Great, thank you. So folks, I would entertain a motion to move out of executive session, please.
Make a motion.
Thanks, Cindy. So, thanks, Glenn. So first and second, any discussion about moving out of executive session? Hearing none, all those in favor of exiting executive session, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, we're out. So we're going to move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes the following. Minutes from our floor meeting, our March 6th carousel meeting, and then our January 14th meeting. It includes a resignation, one field trip, and then 2 nominations, one for Melissa Del Molino for the Behavior Intervention Specialist at Shaftesbury, and the second one for Ty Snell, nominated as principal of Monument Elementary School. So I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as published, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Cindy. Do we have a second?
I'll second the
Thank you,
motion.
Christelle. We have a first and a second. Any discussion on approving the consent agenda as published?
Just to be careful on the field trips when you're filling out the forms that you get all of the pieces that are asked for.
Thank you. Very good. So all those in favor of approving the consent agenda as published, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? And it carries. So congratulations to Melissa Del Molino and particularly to Principal Ty Snell. Congratulations. So that moves us to the chair report. So as we covered in the open session, one of the aspects of our executive session was to discuss security or emergency response measures, the disclosures of which could jeopardize public safety. And that was in regards to the incident at Pownell Elementary School that the acting superintendent spoke of during the superintendent's report. Just very briefly, the board has reviewed the response to the incident as it compares to the crisis plan that's been developed. The board is very pleased with the way that the crisis plan was followed. It averted what could have been an absolute tragedy. It's the nightmare scenario, but it was averted. In no small thanks to the plan being executed perfectly. With that said, the board is still using this as an opportunity to review the plan to see if there are areas in which it could be tweaked, it could be improved, so that should anything like this ever happen again, we can, the school staff and the school community can respond even better. Again, but with that said, tremendous thanks to everyone who was involved in that safe response. And also a huge thanks to the two students who initiated, who brought to the attention of school administrators the presence of a weapon at school. The safe response started with those two students. And if it weren't for them and their bravery and their ability to recognize that there was a real danger on campus at that time, who knows how the day would have turned out. And it could have turned out much, much differently. And so in a very, very major and significant way, the safety of Pownell School is due to the bravery and action of those two students. So kids, if you're watching, you're probably not, because these are boring meetings. But you did a tremendous thing and everybody thanks you. So thank you for that. And just wanted to also point out as part of the chair report, in case it got missed during our directors reports earlier, we had 2 incidents this evening of directors going above and beyond the minimum of what they needed to do in order to save the taxpayers' money. We heard from Director Anderson, who didn't just go with the cheapest overall bid, but instead went through the process of picking out the cheapest parts from different bid providers to get a even lower total cost than we had envisioned originally. So that was extra work that she did that saved the taxpayer money. And then when we heard our report out about IT, we had the same thing. We had an incident of not just doing one sort of putting it out for bid or another, but instead doing both, going above and beyond what was required, again, in order to get the best price, the biggest bang for our buck. So it can be fashionable and fun to take pot shots at people who try to run big organizations like a supervisory union. But again, and it happens often, the directors of this SU have distinguished themselves in going above and beyond and really doing a great job. So thanks to those folks. Brings us to agenda item 12, which is an FYI, which is a budget status report. And with that, we have exhausted our agenda and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, thanks, Glenn. So first and a second, any discussion about adjourning? Hearing none, all those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And it carries. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, Christelle. Hey, Christelle, are you still there? Would it